to another talking about simulation with Roman. Today I wanted to share a theory I had with history and how I don't think anyone was actually stupid throughout history. Like, they had a pretty high intelligence level to do the things they did, whether it's to build great monuments or like use magnets to pretend they're using magic, or whether they're using pulley systems and math and gears, sophisticated clock mechanisms to predict astronomical signs and planetary orbits and whatnot that they were doing since the ancient Greeks around 140 BC as per the Antikythera mechanism. So I wanted to share those ideas today. And so the research I've done recently, things I've known for a long time, backed up with things I was double checking today. So what I think was going on, only went as far back as the fall of Troy. So Troy fell, big war back then against the proto-ancient Athenian group in the Bronze Age versus the early Troy, and there's a legend that the sons of the kings of those areas of Troy and Jericho were actually not exactly what history would tell us, but there's more going on. So that the ancient kings are brother, son of the kings of those areas. Troy moved up and became supposedly the Viking Odin family line. And you can look it up yourself, but that's that the buck stops there. So I was saying the fall of Troy, and then there was a very dark part of that time period. So the Mycenaean age, there's like hardly anything written down. After the fall of Troy, there seemed to be some kind of dismantling of society at that time. So pause there. So at 900 BC, so that would be the time that ancient Greece was, coming back to life after the long silence from the fall of Troy. So what was that, 600 years later? So 1400, 1300 BC up until, it was pretty quiet. Maybe 1700 BC. It's very quiet until about 900 BC. And that was a reemergence of like poetry and mythology until we had Homer in 700 BC, where we had a version of it for ourselves today that was written down of what, the poems and stories they were trading back around 900 BC. Again, we have the copy from 700 BC, which is Homer, wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey and much more. So every 600 years, it seems like we're bobbling back and forth between philosophical and a science extreme to a religious extreme. So we have like a choice or a path on the road that we take on the fork, one or the other. So it seems like we've been here before and we've gotten pretty far, but this is, as far as we made it this time. So we went from there to the fall of Troy. I had more of these written down this year. So from that era, 600 years from the reemergence of ancient Greece would be what, 300, 400 BC. Okay, so 400. Okay, so close to 600 years after we get Socrates. So Socrates existed approximately 550, 600 years after the reemergence of the theater and poetic Greek culture that we know so much about today. So after Socrates, we got Alexander the Great, we got Buddha, we got Jesus, pretty much, and then with Caesar, pretty much around, Caesar was before Jesus. So pretty much in that order. So we got all those kind of world leaders, like a roll of the dice with like several dice, and we just got to roll it. And we came out 600 years after rolling those dice, after receiving Socrates, 380 AD. That's when state religion became Christianity for the Roman Empire. Not under Constantine. Constantine embraced Christianity, but Theodorus something the first or something, Theodore the First, became the first actual Christian Roman emperor that made it a state religion for the empire. And then later, so we have 800 AD, so now we're rolling forward. So 600 years after, we have Charlemagne recutting Europe. So when Charlemagne passed, we got the modern day states of what we think is France and Germany and all that stuff. It was pretty much cut by an earlier leader, Charlemagne, around 800 AD. And then 900 AD, after his death, we have the Crusades. So we have the Christian church, again, pushing for more boundaries at that time. So we had the Crusades. The Crusades was rolling to what? So what around that time? So the Renaissance. So right before the Renaissance, we had the Black Death throughout Europe, 1347 AD. And then Constantinople, had the fall of Constantinople in 1453, which somehow the Byzantine reemergence, there was an interest in Greek language, and that spread throughout Europe, and people wanted to study Greek writings again, and therefore they renewed the old philosophy and science. Now we're back to the loop. Socrates, 399 BC. So do you see what I'm saying? So we traveled all that time along a timeline just to get back to where we were around 300 BC. The Renaissance is a reemergence of what we were doing in 300 BC. So, 600 years past the Renaissance would be now. So we're at that crossroads again, where we rolled all these dice and it's up to us. We got many forks in the road to go this way, or that way. So it's a very interesting time, and the cycle will run its course, and whatever it regurgitates and spits out on top is whatever, rises to the surface. So, I just wanted to share that information, and, if you want to, debate me about my topics, you should probably, get yourself some reading material and study it, and then, get at me and, start throwing them daggers. All right. Thank you again for tuning in to another episode of Talking About the Simulation with Roland here. All right, and I hope everybody's having a wonderful time, and the frost is thawed and the snow is gone, and we're all warming up and ready for spring.